Life is a complex interplay of timing, preparation, and opportunity. It's easy to believe that you should be in control of every outcome, that if you simply work hard enough, plan effectively, and put yourself in the right situations, everything will unfold according to your expectations. But the reality is much more complicated. There are forces at work beyond your immediate perception, shaping events in ways you cannot yet comprehend. And when it comes to relationships, particularly something as significant as meeting the person you are meant to share your life with, timing is not only important, it is everything. People often mistake urgency for necessity. They grow impatient, they fear being alone, and they convince themselves that if they don't act now, if they don't force something to happen, they will miss their chance. This desperation leads to poor decisions. It causes people to settle for relationships that do not truly fulfill them, to ignore red flags, to rush into commitments before they are ready, and the consequences of these mistakes can be devastating. A life bound to the wrong person can be a source of suffering that is difficult to escape. But what if you believed that things were happening exactly as they should? What if you recognized that the delays, the disappointments, the periods of waiting were not obstacles, but rather essential steps in a process that is unfolding precisely as it needs to? What if the timing you view as frustrating is in reality protection? Consider the fact that you are not a static being. You are changing every single day. Your thoughts evolve. Your experiences shape you. Your character is refined. The person you were 5 years ago is not the person you are today, and the person you are today is not the person you will be 5 years from now. So why would you assume that you are already fully prepared for the kind of relationship that will last a lifetime? This is the fundamental mistake people make. They assume that just because they want something, they are ready for it. But wanting is not enough. Desire does not equal preparedness. Many people want deep, meaningful relationships, but they are not yet capable of sustaining them. They have unresolved insecurities. They lack emotional discipline. They do not yet understand what it means to truly give of themselves in a way that is sacrificial rather than selfish. And so, when they enter into relationships prematurely, they do not have the strength, the patience, or the wisdom required to make them work. Timing matters because growth takes time. And the truth is, you are being shaped in ways you cannot yet see. The circumstances of your life, your successes, your failures, your heartbreaks, your struggles are all part of a larger process. They are refining you, preparing you, making you into the kind of person who can one day sustain the kind of relationship you are hoping for. And the same is true for the person you will eventually meet. They are also growing, evolving, becoming. If you were to meet them too soon, you might not recognize them. Or worse, you might not be able to sustain the connection. The foundation would be weak because neither of you would be fully ready. Patience, therefore, is not about passivity. It is not about waiting idly for something to happen to you. It is about active preparation. It is about using the time you have now to build yourself into the kind of person who can contribute meaningfully to a lasting relationship. It is about working on your weaknesses, developing your strengths, and refining your character so that when the right person does appear, you will be able to love them the way they deserve to be loved. This is not a comfortable truth. People want certainty. They want guarantee. They want to know when things will happen and how they will unfold. But life does not work that way. Life is unpredictable, and its timing often defies human understanding. And yet, when you look back, when you reflect on past experiences, you will likely see that things happened exactly as they needed to. The setbacks that once frustrated you led to opportunities you could not have predicted. The delays that seemed unnecessary protected you from mistakes you might have otherwise made. And so if that has been true in the past, why would it not also be true in the future? This is why faith is necessary. Not blind faith, not an irrational hope that things will simply work out without effort, but a deep conviction that there is meaning in the process, even when you cannot yet see it. It is about trusting that the right person will come at the right time, not because you forced it to happen, but because you were patient enough to let it unfold naturally. And when it does happen, when the timing is finally right, you will understand why it could not have been any other way. You will see how every experience, every challenge, every disappointment, every lesson was leading to this moment. And you will not regret the waiting. You will not look back and wish things had happened sooner, because you will know with absolute certainty that it happened exactly when it was supposed to. So do not fear the waiting. Do not rush into something just because you are afraid of being alone. Use this time wisely. Prepare yourself. Become the kind of person who is ready, so that when the right person arrives, you will not only recognize them, but you will have the strength, the wisdom, and the character to build something that truly lasts. Before you meet the right person, before you are introduced to the one with whom you will share your life, there is something crucial that must happen first. You must become the kind of person who is capable of sustaining that relationship. This is something people rarely consider. They want the perfect partner, the ideal soulmate, but they fail to ask themselves the most important question: am I the kind of person that the person I am looking for would want to be with? This is an uncomfortable question because it forces you to look inward. It demands that you assess yourself honestly, to examine your weaknesses, your insecurities, and your flaws. And that is painful. But without that level of self-examination, without the willingness to grow into something better, you are not prepared for the kind of relationship that will truly last. Think about it. If you were to meet the right person today, if they were placed directly in front of you, would you be ready? Would you have the emotional strength, the discipline, and the self-awareness to nurture and sustain that connection? Or would you sabotage it with unresolved issues, with immaturity, with patterns of behavior that lead to destruction rather than stability? The difficult truth is that many people who desire a soulmate are not yet prepared to receive one. There is an idea that permeates modern culture, an idea that says love should be effortless, that the right person will simply appear and everything will fall into place. But that is not how it works. A great relationship is not something that simply happens. It is something that is built, and it requires two people who have done the necessary work to become strong, mature, and capable. And how do you become that kind of person? Through preparation, through struggle, through discipline. You do not develop character by avoiding challenges. You develop character by facing them. This means learning to manage your emotions, to communicate effectively, to take responsibility for your actions, and to build a life that is stable and meaningful. Because if your life is in chaos, if you lack direction, if you are filled with resentment, fear, or bitterness, then even if the right person appears, you will not have the capacity to sustain that relationship. People do not like to hear this. They want to believe that love will save them, that another person will fix what is broken inside of them. But that is an illusion. A relationship is not a solution to personal inadequacy. It is a reflection of who you are. If you are weak, if you are unstable, if you are consumed by insecurity, then that will manifest in your relationships. You will bring your brokenness into the connection, and rather than strengthening each other, you will tear each other down. So before you ask for the right person, ask yourself, am I prepared to be the right person? Am I living in a way that aligns with the kind of relationship I hope to have? Have I developed the qualities of patience, kindness, resilience, and self-control? Have I confronted my own flaws rather than expecting someone else to tolerate or fix them? This is the work that must be done before a meaningful relationship can exist. And that is why there are periods of waiting. That is why relationships do not always come when we want them to. Because if they did, if they came before we were ready, they would crumble under the weight of our own unpreparedness. There is a refining process that takes place before two people are brought together. It is a process that requires patience, discipline, and self-awareness. It requires that you become the kind of person who can love selflessly rather than selfishly. Because true love is not about taking, it is about giving. It is about being strong enough to support another person, wise enough to resolve conflicts, and mature enough to put aside pride for the sake of unity. And if you neglect this preparation, if you ignore the opportunity to grow into a better version of yourself, then even if the right person comes along, you will not be able to sustain the relationship. You will ruin it. You will fall into the same destructive patterns that have led to so many failed relationships before. But if you embrace this process, if you dedicate yourself to becoming someone of character, then when the right person does appear, you will be ready. You will not need them to fix you because you will already have done the work to fix yourself. You will not need them to complete you because you will already be whole. And that is what creates the foundation for a love that lasts. Not desperation, not loneliness, but two individuals who are strong, prepared, and fully capable of building something extraordinary together. So before you ask why you have not yet met the right person, ask yourself, am I becoming the kind of person who is ready for that relationship? Because when you do the work, when you become someone who is strong, wise, and self-sufficient, then love will not be something you chase. It will be something that arrives at exactly the right time. And when it does, you will be prepared to receive it. People often misunderstand the foundation of a relationship that lasts. They think love is a feeling, a spark, an emotional high that comes and goes like the tide. They expect to find someone who makes them happy all the time, who fills their emptiness, who completes them. But that is a flawed perspective, and it is one of the main reasons relationships crumble. A real, lasting relationship is not built on fleeting emotions. It is built on something much stronger, something much more difficult to attain. A relationship that truly endures must be grounded in something greater than just attraction, greater than just shared interests, greater than convenience. It must be anchored in something unshakable, something that remains firm even when emotions waver, when difficulties arise, when life becomes overwhelming. And this is where most people go wrong. They build their relationships on a foundation of sand rather than on rock. The modern world promotes the idea that love should always be effortless, that if you find the right person, things will simply work. But this is naive. Any meaningful connection, any deep bond requires effort, commitment, and sacrifice. It is not something that simply falls into place. It is something that must be built brick by brick with patience, with discipline, and with an unyielding sense of responsibility. The core of this idea is simple but difficult to accept. Love is not about what you get from someone else. It is about what you give. And what you give must be of value. If you have not cultivated your own character, if you have not built yourself into someone who is strong, disciplined, and capable of love, that is selfless rather than selfish, then you have little to offer. This is why relationships built solely on attraction, infatuation, or convenience do not last. Those things fade. What remains, what determines whether a relationship stands the test of time, is whether it is grounded in shared purpose, in shared values, in something beyond just two people seeking happiness from one another. People often believe that the right person will bring them fulfillment, that if they can just find their soulmate, everything in their life will fall into place. But that is not how it works. If you are empty, if you are lost, if you lack purpose, then even the most perfect partner cannot fill that void. It is not their job to fix you. It is not their responsibility to give you meaning. You must develop that for yourself. And here is where the foundation of a relationship becomes crucial. It must be built on something greater than just the two of you. It must be built on a commitment to truth, to growth, to something higher than personal gratification. If your relationship exists only to serve your own needs, then the moment those needs are not met, the bond begins to crack. But if your relationship is founded on something deeper, a shared dedication to something meaningful, something transcendent, then it has the strength to withstand whatever life throws at it. This is why patience is critical. People rush into relationships desperate to find connection, to escape loneliness, to feel wanted, but in doing so, they often compromise the foundation. They settle for something that feels good in the moment without considering whether it is built to last. They ignore warning signs. They avoid difficult conversations. They prioritize comfort over truth. And then when the inevitable storms come, when conflict arises, when attraction fades, they are left wondering why everything fell apart. If you want a relationship that endures, then you must be willing to do what is difficult. You must choose truth over convenience. You must recognize that love is not simply a feeling, it is a choice, a discipline, an act of will. And that choice must be made daily in both the best and the worst of times. A relationship that lasts is not one where two people never struggle, never disagree, never face hardship. It is one where they choose again and again to work through those struggles, to resolve those disagreements, to stand firm even when everything around them is shaking. It is one where both individuals commit to something beyond themselves, where they are bound not just by emotion but by purpose. And this is why the right person comes at the right time. If you have not yet built yourself into the kind of person who can sustain this level of commitment, then no relationship will satisfy you. If you are not yet strong enough to contribute meaningfully to a bond of this magnitude, then even the best partner in the world will not be enough. But if you take the time to build a foundation before the relationship even begins, if you cultivate discipline, if you develop strength, if you establish your values, if you commit yourself to something meaningful, then when the right person does come, you will be ready. And when that happens, the connection you form will not be fleeting. It will not be based on shallow attraction or temporary excitement. It will be built to last. Because true love, real love, is not about finding someone who makes you happy in the moment. It is about finding someone with whom you can build something meaningful, something strong, something that can endure not just for a season, but for a lifetime. And that kind of relationship is not found by chance. It is forged through patience, wisdom, and an unwavering commitment to truth. People often underestimate the importance of clarity when it comes to relationships. They wander through life hoping to find the right person, yet they fail to define what right even means. They assume that love will simply reveal itself to them in some grand, mystical moment, as if they will just know when the right person appears. But that is not how life works. Clarity must come before connection. If you do not understand what you are looking for, if you have not defined your values, your principles, your vision for life, then how can you possibly expect to recognize the person who aligns with them? This is one of the great failures of modern relationships. People rush into commitments without any clear understanding of what they truly want or need. They confuse attraction with compatibility, passion with purpose, convenience with destiny. And because they lack a defined standard, they end up lost, moving from one failed relationship to another, constantly questioning why things never seem to work out. But the truth is, if you do not know what you are looking for, you will accept anything. And if you accept anything, you will get exactly that, anything. That is a dangerous game to play with something as significant as your future. You need a standard. You need a foundation. You need an articulated vision of the kind of life you want to build and the kind of person who is capable of building it with you. This is not about creating an impossible checklist, nor is it about seeking perfection. It is about having a framework, a structure, a guiding philosophy that informs your decisions so that you do not fall into relationships that are built on nothing but impulse and wishful thinking. People make the mistake of thinking that love alone is enough, that if they just feel strongly enough about someone, everything else will somehow fall into place. But that is naive. Feelings are fleeting. Emotions shift. Passion fades. If a relationship is to endure, it must be built on something much stronger than transient emotion. It must be built on alignment, on a shared foundation of values, of character, of purpose. And if you do not have clarity about what those things are, then you will find yourself constantly confused, making choices that lead to nothing but disappointment. This is why it is so important to take the time to define what truly matters to you. Ask yourself, what kind of life do I want to live? What kind of person do I need by my side in order to create that life? What values are non-negotiable? What kind of relationship do I refuse to settle for? These questions are difficult, but they are necessary. Without them, you are operating in the dark, making decisions based on impulse rather than wisdom. And if you do not define your standard, the world will define it for you. Society will feed you a version of love that is shallow, transactional, and temporary. It will tell you that compatibility is based on chemistry alone, that commitment is unnecessary, that loyalty is outdated. And if you are not careful, you will believe it. You will adopt the same flawed mindset and you will suffer the same consequences. Failed relationships, broken trust, and a deep sense of disillusionment. But when you establish clarity, when you define your values, when you set a standard, when you refuse to compromise on what truly matters, everything changes. You no longer entertain relationships that do not align with your purpose. You no longer waste time on connections that lead nowhere. You begin to attract the kind of person who shares your vision, who upholds the same principles, who is capable of building something meaningful with you. And this is how the right person is introduced into your life, not by accident, not by luck, but by intention. The right person does not appear when you are lost in confusion. They appear when you are grounded in certainty. They do not show up when you are desperate for love. They show up when you have cultivated a life that is already rich with meaning, because the right person is not a solution to your problems, nor are they a replacement for your own self-development. They are a partner in a journey that has already begun. This is why clarity is so critical. If you do not know what you stand for, you will fall for anything. If you do not define what matters most, you will accept far less than what you deserve. But if you take the time to build a clear, unshakable foundation, if you hold yourself to a standard and refuse to compromise on what truly matters, then when the right person does arrive, you will be able to recognize them. And more importantly, you will be prepared to build something that lasts. So do not waste time chasing after relationships that have no foundation. Do not settle for connections that are built only on emotion without structure, passion without purpose. Take the time to define what truly matters. Set a standard and do not waver from it, because the right person will not be found in confusion. They will be found when you have built a life that is already filled with clarity, purpose, and meaning. And when that moment comes, when the connection is real, when the foundation is solid, you will not have to question it. You will know. People have this strange belief that the perfect relationship will come effortlessly, that if two people are truly meant to be together, everything will fall into place without struggle, without hardship, without deliberate effort. But that is an illusion. Anything of value, anything worth having requires work. And a meaningful, enduring relationship is no exception. The idea that love should be easy is one of the most destructive misconceptions of our time. It leads people to abandon relationships the moment they become difficult, to walk away at the first sign of struggle, to assume that if there is conflict, something must be wrong. But that is a fundamental misunderstanding of what a relationship is for. A relationship is not meant to be a permanent state of euphoria. It is not supposed to be free from challenges. In fact, it is the struggles within a relationship that make it meaningful. If you are with someone who never challenges you, who never pushes you to grow, who never forces you to confront your weaknesses, then you are not in a relationship. You are in a mutual delusion. A real relationship is a crucible. It refines you. It exposes you. It forces you to become better, not for your own sake, but for the sake of someone else. And that is difficult. That requires sacrifice. That demands that you put aside selfishness, that you take responsibility, that you choose day after day to build something greater than yourself. The reason many relationships fail is because people expect love to be a feeling rather than a commitment. They want passion without discipline. They want romance without responsibility. But passion fades, attraction shifts, If a relationship is to last, it must be anchored in something much deeper than desire. It must be built on the willingness to endure, to stay when it is hard, to work when it is inconvenient, to grow when it is uncomfortable. And most people are simply not prepared to do that. This is why it is so important to understand what you are committing to before you enter into a relationship. If you are looking for someone to make you happy, to entertain you, to complete you, then you are looking for a fantasy. No person can bear the weight of your unfulfilled potential. No person can be responsible for your sense of purpose. That is something you must establish for yourself. A relationship is not a replacement for self-development. It is not a way to avoid your own shortcomings. If anything, it reveals those shortcomings. It magnifies them. It forces you to confront your flaws in ways you never had to before. And if you are not willing to face that reality, then you will never be capable of sustaining a relationship that truly matters. This is why relationships require work. Not just work to keep the romance alive, but work to keep yourself disciplined. Work to control your temper. Work to be honest even when it is uncomfortable. Work to forgive even when you have been wronged. Work to remain committed even when everything in you wants to walk away. That is what love actually looks like, not effortless perfection, but the daily decision to sacrifice selfishness for the sake of something greater. And that is precisely why most people are not ready for the right person when they meet them, because they have not done the internal work required to sustain a relationship. They are undisciplined. They are consumed by ego. They are unwilling to accept responsibility for their own flaws. And so when they encounter conflict, they run. When they are challenged, they resist. When things become difficult, they assume that the relationship itself is flawed, rather than recognizing that the struggle is necessary for growth. Think about this. If you are in a relationship where everything is easy, where nothing ever challenges you, where there is no need for self-improvement, then what kind of person are you becoming? Not a stronger one, not a wiser one, not someone who is capable of handling the inevitable hardships of life. Because life will test you. You will face loss. You will encounter suffering. You will be confronted with moments of despair. And if your relationship has not prepared you to endure those things, if it is built solely on the illusion of ease, then it will collapse when hardship comes. But if you approach love with the right mindset, if you understand that struggle is part of the process, if you recognize that the work of a relationship is what gives it depth, then you will not be disillusioned when challenges arise. You will not see conflict as a sign of failure. You will not mistake temporary difficulty for incompatibility. Instead, you will see those moments for what they are, opportunities to become better, to strengthen your bond, to develop the kind of character that can sustain something truly meaningful. So if you are waiting for the right person, ask yourself this: am I ready to put in the work? Am I prepared to do more than just feel love? Am I willing to practice it, to discipline myself for the sake of someone else, to commit to something that will demand sacrifice? Because if you are not willing to do those things, then no person, no matter how perfect, will be able to make a relationship work with you. But if you are willing to embrace the struggle, to accept that love is not found in ease but in effort, then when the right person does come, you will not only recognize them, you will be ready to build something with them that can truly last. People often assume that when they meet the right person, the connection will be instantaneous, effortless, as if fate itself has aligned to bring two souls together without resistance or struggle. But that is not how relationships unfold, not meaningful ones, not relationships built to last. The idea that your soulmate will simply appear in front of you, fully formed, perfectly suited to you, and requiring no effort on your part to understand or appreciate them, that is not a realistic expectation. It is a fantasy. And fantasies are dangerous because they make reality seem insufficient by comparison. A true relationship, one that has depth, one that endures, is not just something that happens to you. It is something you participate in. It is something you cultivate. You do not merely find the right person, you become the right person. And that process takes time, effort, and a willingness to struggle through discomfort and uncertainty. Too many people expect love to feel like a constant state of certainty. They think that when they meet the right person, all doubts will disappear, all hesitation will vanish, all questions will be answered immediately. But the truth is, any relationship worth having will demand that you wrestle with your own fears, your own insecurities, your own hesitations. The presence of uncertainty is not a sign that the relationship is doomed. It is a sign that the relationship is real. There is a reason why deep connections take time to develop. People are not simple. You are not simple. You are complex, layered with past experiences, emotions, fears, and beliefs that shape how you interact with others. And so is the person you are meant to be with. To assume that you can fully understand someone within days or weeks or even months is naive. The process of truly knowing someone, of truly loving them, not just for who they appear to be, but for who they are, is something that unfolds gradually, over time, through shared experiences, through trials, through moments of joy and moments of hardship. And that is the paradox of relationships. We crave certainty, but we must embrace uncertainty in order to build something real. We want immediate confirmation, but we must be willing to wait, to observe, to learn, to understand. The right person will not prove themselves to you in an instant. They will reveal themselves to you over time, through their actions, through their consistency, through the way they treat you when things are easy, and more importantly, when things are difficult. This is why patience is so important. When people rush into relationships, desperate to secure love before they truly understand what it requires, they set themselves up for failure. They make commitments based on fleeting emotions rather than deep understanding. They allow attraction to overshadow discernment. And then, when the initial excitement fades, when the reality of who the other person is begins to emerge, they are left feeling disillusioned, disappointed, betrayed by their own expectations. But if you are patient, if you allow the process of connection to unfold naturally, then something extraordinary happens. You begin to see the other person not as an idealized version of what you want them to be, but as they truly are. You learn their strengths, but also their flaws. You see where you align, but also where you differ. And through that process, a genuine bond is formed, not based on illusions, but on truth. This is how the right relationship is built, not through immediate certainty, but through mutual discovery, not through perfection, but through persistence. And it requires a level of maturity that most people are unwilling to develop. It requires the ability to sit with uncertainty, to resist the impulse to rush, to allow love to grow rather than demanding that it arrive fully formed. The person you are meant to be with is not someone you will recognize in an instant. They are someone you will come to know through time, through experience, through the slow and deliberate act of paying attention. And that means that when you meet someone who has potential, who shares your values, who treats you with respect, who challenges you to grow, you must be willing to invest in the process of discovery. You must be willing to give the relationship the time it needs to become what it is capable of being. So if you find yourself doubting, if you find yourself uncertain, do not assume that this means the relationship is wrong. Instead, ask yourself whether you are willing to do the work. Are you willing to be patient? Are you willing to learn, to grow, to allow love to develop at the pace it requires rather than the pace you desire? Because if you are not, then no relationship, no matter how perfect it may seem in the beginning, will be able to withstand the realities of life. But if you are, if you choose patience over impulse, if you embrace the process rather than resisting it, then when the right person does come, you will not only recognize them, you will have built something with them that is strong enough to endure. And in the end, that is what truly matters. Not the illusion of immediate certainty, but the reality of a love that has been tested, refined, and made unshakable through time.